there because it's only a mile pitch. That's not a whole word like difference, is it though? Yeah.
Sometimes I like these countries. Like I can figure that out.
All right. The other one, folks, to make sure you have labeled correctly, is this small one of Luxembourg. So you have the Netherlands, Belgium, and this little one here is Luxembourg.
Where's London?
Any questions on the political map? Any cities you need help with, or?
When is this test? Friday.
All right, are you ready to see? Not sure why I'm having to talk over voices, people. And then the physical features. E is, I'm assuming it's Scandinavia.
Yeah.
This is the Jutland. This peninsula is called the Iberian. This peninsula is called the Italian. This peninsula is called the Balkan. Any of those you need me to repeat? The mountain ranges, the one that divides Spain and France is called the Pyrenees. This mountain range in the north of Italy, in Switzerland, is the Alps. And the mountain range that runs vertically in Italy is the Apennines. Any of those, anything on the physical feature that you were struggling to find or you need help with? Jackson, why did you not get your map up? Let me help you get ready for the test. One of you two is not in the right seat. There's zero chance I put you together in the same group. Move.
I don't think that's the right one.
I know you're not on the right spot, Miss Casey. Get back.
She doesn't talk.
She doesn't talk, but she's still gonna move. If I'm gonna make Jackson onto the seating chart, I have to make everyone.
Where is it?
Bird, would you really think I would get up?
Right.
She was.
What?
That is
Yes.
not me.
Yeah, I was
totally
not
not
saying.
getting. That is just not me.
That's actually kind of true. You didn't move last time either.
See?
All right, any questions on the maps? Can we dig into some new to review and then new?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yes? Okay, awesome. Folks, I guarantee you, you're gonna have a question or two on Greece on your upcoming unit test. As you think through about owning your learning and being accountable for that and the learning skills conversation that we had yesterday, nothing in your Greece or Rome notes is more than a matching understanding. What is an acropolis? Acropolises were found in which empires, city-states? What is the name of the markets in Greek cities? What is an agora? Those kind of questions. Anything tricky about that or anything that I didn't help you get defined well enough that you need help with? Same thing with Rome. There is possibly one thing with Rome that you might have to know at a 3. Why was the Roman road system a big deal? We know that Rome had a great road system. Why was it a big deal? Military. Sure trade. Trade was an incredibly big deal. But it was done with the function of getting military from one end of the empire to the other. Okay? Alright. Site and situation. Make sure you know the meanings of those. Site being physical characteristics like rivers and agricultural lands and things like that. Situation being how it is in relation to other cities and other places. So Minneapolis was in a great location because it was a great westward trading center. That's its situation. Minneapolis was a great location because of its rivers and agricultural land that made it a mill city. That is its site. Get the difference? Okay. So you might get a question, how do site and situation affect location of cities? And you have to be able to reference situation to relationship of places and site to the quality of land and stuff. Questions? I don't remember exactly how class ended yesterday. Did we get a review question in our notes that sounded something like, why do primate cities make it harder for secondary cities to develop? Did we get a review question like that written in?
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this, because if this is the principle of rank size rule, can you answer this question from what you learned yesterday? In a rank size country, why does the second city only reach half the size of the first ranked city? Why does that become normal? Noah?
Because like, countries with primary cities,
But we're in rank size. I specifically asked rank size.
so like there isn't with rank size there isn't primary cities, so like
That is a true statement. But why does the secondary city in a rank size country only get to half of the size of the big city? Chris?
Because the rank size rule says that they're all, the ranks are inversely proportional to the size of the big city.
You're right. But why? Why is it true that the second city in many, 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 many countries only gets to half the size of the primary city? Because of the pull of the larger one, because of the urban functions that the larger one provides, the secondary city is not going to approach it in size, because all of the functions that are needed of that primary large city are done in a primary large city. So that secondary city doesn't ever provide enough functions to become enough of a draw and to become big enough. So that's why the rank size rule works, because the urban function of the central city is a big enough deal. On your free response question about primate cities, it asks you, sort of, not directly, but if you can answer this question, you'd be prepared for the free response question. How do primate cities inhibit the development of other cities or regions? Chris?
Did you want to answer it?
Sure, we can answer it. I'll help you for your free response question.
Because there's so many functions in the primate city that not many other cities are needed.
Okay, so if I'm, a smaller city in Mexico, if I'm Guadalajara, how do I become a significant city when all of the country's needs and demands are met within Mexico City? Because the primate city dominates so much in urban function and in pull. Secondary cities don't grow to become big. Economic development in second cities doesn't grow. Regional development doesn't happen. Infrastructure all points to Mexico City, rather than maybe some of the other places that won't grow because of lack of infrastructure. So all of those realities and all of the focus on a primate city really inhibits those secondary and tertiary cities. So, does that make sense? That's kind of level 4 stuff where we're thinking about it, not just knowing the meaning, but the wrappings around it in terms of how it relates with other cities. No?
with the primary cities thing, they're really like reliant on themselves. So say like with Raiders core periphery mile, where the core countries like rely on the periphery countries, would that bigger cities at all rely on the small ones?
Oh, it's a really good question. I would say probably not. I should also tell you this, there is a secondary meaning of core periphery in the terminology of geography that I have not gone through with you. If you were asked what America's core is, what would you say? Northeast, right? It's the population center, it's the wealthiest region, it's got the most people. So a core is the central place, not necessarily geographically or physically central, but central in relevance. So we know that Mexico City is clearly the core of Mexico. We know that the core of the economic world are the wealthy countries of Europe and America. Right? So core has another context in that as well. Do you have questions on rank, size, refinement, city, or site situation? Okay, you have questions on your Europe map? You feel like that test will be pretty easy on Friday? Here is one thing. I'm going to have you spend about 10 minutes doing this, and then when you are done, I don't know that we'll actually use it very specifically today, but we will have some conversations around it tomorrow. Grab the blank map of Minnesota that I believe you picked up in class yesterday. Okay, do this. Grab a smart device, and as a group, you'll just go faster and make it a little bit better if you don't do this all yourself. Start marking cities on the map. Mankato, Bloomington, Minneapolis, Bemidji, Moorhead, Austin, Albert Lee.
I'm going to Austin next weekend. My brother's coming.
Nice. Now you'll know where it is. And do this too. As you look them up, write down a population of those cities, but don't use what comes after the comma. So if it's 300,000, which somewhere is St. Paul, write 300. If it's 16,000, write 16. So you have more room on your map. And just see if you can get 15 or 20 in the next 6 or 7 minutes. They don't have to go in population order. I'm going to throw a map up on the board for you. And I'm going to mark attendance while you're doing
That
this.
really hurt. Wait,
By the way, folks, I started getting the tests in this morning and correcting pre-response questions. I got sidetracked a couple times. If they don't get in tonight, all of those makeup tests will be in tomorrow. Okay?
So which one? Are we going to do it together or by ourselves?
Yeah, just Google a map of Minnesota and then
Okay, so just like type them
Dylan, what are you doing at golf practice tonight?
I don't know.
coming to my game.
Joe, you're gonna play 9 holes and go home.
And then, no, he's coming to my game.
I don't know.
I'm trying to think if I should bring my 7-iron along on my round.
Mr. Holland, you should come to the game.
No. Riley, I'd go over that to see Jim.
Mr. Holland.
I know, I wanna go do that too.
Riley, why do you
Come with me and T, we're sitting
Yeah,
in church.
with Laura.
So on a typical day, you would get out there, tee off of number 1 at about 2:45, 3 o'clock, or if you hit the range first.
I'd say probably 2:45, 3 o'clock. Or we're on like practice green and the range all day. I'd say we probably play 3 times over 4 and practice.
the class with the best service yet.
Really?
Yeah, I get like,
Probably gonna be
I have
practice.
like almost all my LTE. This is
Although I won't be out
class.
there until almost 5.
There's a show called Fargo.
Tomorrow you have a meet?
Tomorrow there is a meet,
Mine is
but
good.
I'm not going to that one, and then I'm going on Monday at 8.
Then I got
I'm just too small.
And then there's another meet next week, like North End or something.
Exactly.
Oh, you gotta play out there.
No, it's just terrible.
St. Paul is right down here.
Someday I'm gonna grab my 7-iron and go for a run and join you for 3 holes.
I hate running.
Sounds good.
Okay, what do you get?
No, it's somewhere in the south, I just can't find it. So I have to.
Shoot.
Anytime I get the ball, it's only 10 yards, because there's,
I know.
nature reserves, because there's nothing in the park.
Rochester's like
Down by the
Oh, it's down here.
It's far down at the kind of.
It's like right here.
Need a little music for this?
Yes, please.
Do some like Disney Channel.
I got a song. I got the song of the day.
All right. Hector. I'm just gonna mark him like this.
Right upside down.
Yeah, I can do it.
What's the fee for booking this tropical
good
resort?
Girls were like, "Really?"
And this Tokyo Hotel?
Is it like a line? Seriously. This is that bad.
Well, we got these, we got bowls, two different bowls. We got memberships. And then. We got white ones.
Folks, the truth on this math thing is that for some of you, it will really just be an exercise in seeing what the state looks like. For those of you that do take a few minutes with it as you're studying Central Place, you can really make some connection as to how it plays out in the real world. So it will be useful for some of you to dig in, but we'll be kind of referencing it a few times the next few days. So she's luxurious.
Oh, I hate still water. Oh,
You're right.
I hate it. I just don't like it. The boys are mean, man. The girls are just
Oh, boys are mean?
in still water.
Oh, I thought you were just talking about boys in general. I was like, oh, ouch.
Yeah, you kind of did take off my jersey today, and you don't invite me to your party, so
She is right, Jesse.
you're never gonna live that
Take
down.
off Laura Shaw's jersey.
Yeah, I give it that. Natural one.
Dylan, I don't even.
I was talking more about.
Dylan, I don't even care.
Well, you can come to Dad's party on Friday.
I'm not having a party
You
this
can't
weekend.
have a party. So he says he's probably having one, but that's his way of not inviting
I'm trying to
me.
get
You can
Jimmy
come
to
to-
have one. I can't.
You can come to DJ's party.
TJ's not having a party.
Yeah, he is.
You think his parents are going good luck.
Oh, no.
I just.
What's the population of 3? Wait, so then we're supposed to do the population after we. Yeah.
But right, yeah, only makes us, oh yeah, we're at 23.
Okay, where's 23? Yeah.
The problem is, the DJ
Yeah,
and
I
the
have-
guy on the same way.
Contractors.
I said, you grow a
This is
lot.
going to get kids, 'cause he brings it.
You always hang on to it. I'm always hungry.
No, it says Long Park.
Long Prairie.
Are you getting a handful of them in there?
We just need a little more time.
I'm gonna give you one more song. How's that sound?
Okay.
We need St. Cloud.
Switching songs. Oh,
Yeah.
From Shrek, right?
That's good.
Or Disney.
Yeah.
I have like no cities now.
So you have to kind of population for all the children.
Yeah. 20 times. I probably did like 10.
It's like 4 hours.
I know Maple Grove is fun.
Why?
Why can't you open your There's 30 people to stay.
He's in 8th grade
How
though.
often do you use your smartphone in other classes?
Not often.
I mean, the teachers.
Well, we aren't supposed to use them.
What?
We aren't supposed to be on.
I know you don't, and I'm pretty sure you don't have control.
What? No, I got like.
Oh, I did it all at Rochester. I should probably do that. Rochester
I
is
did this morning.
the population is
I bet it's
111. Thank you.
Chris.
Yeah, well, it's like
Apparently Minnesota's sport is ice.
Not any.
You didn't know that?
Hey, Chuck, more that on there, get Bemidji on there.
Now we have hockey day.
Yeah.
What?
Would it be interesting?
wow.
Oh, please tell me. Oh.
One more song, Mr. Holland.
Serious?
Yeah.
I'm ready. I have 24 million.
Let me see what's coming up.
I even color coded it.
Good.
Let's go Minnesota. 5.4 million. Okay. What happened? Can I see your million? Oh, can I see your population value? Thank you.
Why?
Rochester. It's in the bottom corner. Yep, and it's 111, right, 111. My legs are so soft.
Okay, mine too.
I just want to touch them.
When's your first summer practice?
Oh wow, he had a map like that. Working so hard.
I won't make you sit to it.
Let's listen to Start All Over by Hannah Montana.
Can we get a different song? Thank you.
What?
I don't like this
I didn't get
one.
this one, but
I'm
Winona is 28.
What about for, I want 2 days. No, we can't practice with the world. We can't practice every year. We can. No problem.
I'm a drummer. Starting my own band. You're all invited to my first concert.
I'll be the singer.
Alright.
Why are you guys?
Oh, I actually have a.
Alright.
Oh, dang. That was going good.
Set that aside for a second. we're gonna look at our next, should unfreeze that, might be better. Our next big deal, and this one, like, I really think this is gonna be a free response question this year. It is one of the
You think all
models.
of them are going to be a free response question?
All of them have been. This is the one model.
10 or 110?
This is the one model that hasn't been a free response question. Von Thunen has, Weber has, Primate City Rank Size have. What are some of our other models? Core periphery has been part of a question. This model is one that they talk about quite a bit in training and hasn't been a free response question. So I'm going to Google this and see if someone has written one, a couple of practice ones. Because the AP board hasn't done one on the central place theory yet. Let me take you through another kind of thought process of Minnesota cities, and then I'll see if I can make sense of the central place theory. So look over here at the board where the green is. If you leave Minneapolis and follow the Mississippi River, you go about 9 miles and you get to Brooklyn Park. You keep going up the Mississippi River, you go about 9 miles, you get to Coon Rapids. Staying on the Mississippi River, you go about 6, you get to Anoka. Dayton is technically on the river, but it's the only city in this deal that falls on the other side of it, so we're not going to count Dayton. So then you go about 9 miles, you get to Elk River. You go about 9 miles, you get to Big Lake. You go about 9 miles, you get to Becker. You go about about 11 miles, you get to Clear Lake. You go about 11 miles, you get to St. Cloud. You go about 8 miles, you get to Rice. You go about, I missed one. You go about 9 miles, you get to Royalton. You go about 12 miles, you get to Forest Lake. You go about 10 miles and you get to Fort Ripley, and you go about another 10 and you're in Brainerd. It's not an accident. And here's another interesting thing when you do this. Very large city. Town or emerging city. So we're really big, 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 smaller, 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 big, small, bigger, small, bigger. The distance between them and the size that they all are all part of their relationship to each other. It's all part of how Walter Christaller talks about that cities align in relationship with each other. Okay? Do you have an idea or a guess as to why these cities fall roughly 9 miles apart? Agricultural trade. Farmers can take goods, a certain distance in a day. I do not know the history of Elk River very well, but I guarantee you one of the first businesses in town was Marty's Feed Mill. Not that Marty's. Okay, do you guys know where Marty's Feed Mill is?
No.
Isn't it
Oh
like,
wait, it's right by the train tracks. Isn't it?
Yeah.
Right by the train track.
and it's like red and it says,
Mhm.
I don't think so.
coming soon, and then it, yeah.
Yeah,
So-
what's
that? There's two of them. The one on this side of the railroad tracks, I don't think is open right now. Do you know the name of the other one?
Taking pictures.
The one on the on the south side of the tracks, right across from the Dairy Queen, just actually right across from Charlie Brown's.
One right next to the rental place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think that one's open right now, but Marty's is. And think about this, folks. In the wagon and train days, in the wagon, train, and river days, Marty's Feed Mill is a great location. Feed would come in, grain would come in, cattle would come in, all that would just head right out of that hub. Okay? All right? And so the distance between them is really a functionality of ability and willingness to move. The size of them is really a function of need. Okay? Who lives in North Fork?
Dylan.
do.
Where do you get groceries?
Cub now.
What do you mean now?
Well, my dad's doing like a big huge job in Cub, so now we go
Okay, where did you, where?
We used to go to Coburn.
Coburn. Okay. The reality for most folks in North Fork is that they service their needs in the small little town of Ramsey. Gas station and grocery store is primarily what you have available to you there,
And
right?
there's a Caribou Coffee.
Right. Yep. There's a Mexican restaurant.
Oh, it's so good.
Okay.
Less commentary, less commentary.
So here's my point. For many years, North Fork folks had to come to Elk River for groceries, sometimes Anoka, depending on which way they were traveling and what their needs were. But the reality is, because more people grew there, the town of Ramsey became a little bit of a bigger deal and started providing some services to the folks. Okay? Do you think Ramsey will ever be bigger than Anoka in terms of the services it provides?
No.
Why not?
Because people are already too reliant on.
Okay?
Have to go that
Anoka relies on Ramsey.
If people are going to drive 6 miles to Anoka to pick up goods, and I put in a competitive deal in Ramsey, I don't know that I'm going to survive because people from Anoka ain't coming to Ramsey. So what ends up happening is the bigger need kind of things stay in the bigger town kind of
The
thing.
threshold stays the same, but the range goes down.
Sort of. Yep, threshold stays the same, but the range might go down. So this is what Chris Stoller says. Every urban structure has a central place. Your central place is Minneapolis. Surrounding the central places are villages and hamlets and towns. And they organize in a certain way based on distances of travel, needs that they have, functions that are provided. And so the way it's described here is he says, he developed a model. I don't know, I mean, I kind of like to think, but for me to sit down and draw up a whole model and to think about, you know, this city's here because this one provides more services than the other. I don't know where people come up with these ideas, but Chris Stoller makes a lot of sense. So he wants to predict how and where central places will be located within the urban hierarchy, within hamlets, within villages, within towns, and how they would be functionally and spatially distributed. So when we take all of the villages, all of the towns, all of the hamlets, and all of the central place cities, we should go, yeah, that one should go there, that one should go there, it makes sense. Let me slip out of this slide for a moment, we'll come back to that. He basically says, hey, here's our city. We don't need much around it because all of these hamlet folks are going to come to the city to have their needs met. Right? But then, as we start getting farther away, we might need something a little bit bigger like a village. Because now some of these needs are going to be too far to go for. Does that make a little bit of sense? So we should go city, hamlet, village, and now all of a sudden we're getting far enough away from the city that we need more services, right? So this would be a town. And we could space this out again, and eventually we're going to need an area of greater service provision. So he basically says if you break it down into a situation where you have a central city, you should have areas around it where fewer services are provided, and then at a greater distance, maybe more services. And then at a greater distance, even more services, and then it will start breaking its way back down the other way again. Okay? So, Stoller basically says the structure of cities and the layout is not an accident. It's based on some things. And the things are how services are provided between cities and why certain cities provide fewer services than others. Okay? Questions? All right, so this part, if you get a free response question, this part's going to have to be in it. I don't think I'll ask you a multiple choice question about this, but if you have to describe why villages and hamlets would be where they are in the central place theory, one of the things you might have to talk about is that Kristaller assumed, just like Von Thunen assumed, just like Weber assumed, okay, that what we're gonna have is flat land, no barriers, consistent soil, population is evenly distributed, wealth is evenly distributed. So if we just said, we're gonna make this civilization on Mars, we're gonna make a central city, it might shape out like that. Okay. Let me have another conversation that might help you think about this, because you need to know what trade area is. I have a slide for trade area with a textbook definition of trade area. I'm going to tell you what trade area means in my brain. It's a city's economic reach. Bird, where do you get groceries? Where do you get groceries? So you come to Elk River, okay? Occasionally you have to run to Bill's for something, but it's pretty expensive, doesn't have a lot of stuff, so you don't go there real often, right? I'm trying to figure out some other folks where I know they live. Jackson, where do you get groceries? So you come into Elk River too. How close do you live to the city of Big Lake?
10 miles.
How close do you live to the city of Zimmerman?
Closer to 12 miles to go
Okay. And how far do you live from the city of Elk River?
further. 15.
Okay. And Elk River is where you come mostly probably because your dad picks up groceries before he goes home. On a Saturday when you got to run errands and get groceries, where do you go?
I'll usually go to like Costco or somewhere.
Okay, so you might go to St. Cloud or you might go to cities, but you don't go to Becker or Big Lake really with any consistency, or Zimmerman. Okay, so anybody live in Big Lake Township? Any of you live near Zimmerman? Out 169 away. Where do you live, Noah?